Here are your Court News Ohio top stories in 5 minutes.
Voters are returning 2 Ohio Supreme Court justices to the bench. Justice Sharon Kennedy defeated State Representative Thomas Letson with more than 72% of the vote. And with 56% of the vote, Justice Judith French beat her opponent, Judge John O'Donnell of the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas. There were another 223 judicial races in the November 4th election, with 68 or 30% of those contested. 8 incumbent judges lost their bids to retain their seats, including 6 gubernatorial appointees who were seeking election for the first time. There will be 33 new judges taking office as a result from the election.
The Ohio Supreme Court on November 4th ruled that the Toledo Municipal Court must find probable cause before issuing arrest warrants. The court determined that for the last 17 years, the Toledo Municipal Court violated the U.S. and Ohio constitutions by granting warrants without deciding whether probable cause was shown. The Supreme Court stated that the municipal court needs to change its process for issuing future arrest warrants. Ohio's criminal rules mandate that a judge, magistrate, clerk of court, or court officer designated by the judge must issue arrest warrants.
The Ohio Supreme Court on November 6 suspended 2 attorneys for misconduct. The justices suspended Dayton attorney Ben Swift for 2 years with 1 year stayed for overbilling for work he did as a court-appointed attorney in 4 counties over a 22-month period. Swift must pay back $50,000 in restitution to the state and counties. Columbus attorney Joy Marshall was also suspended for 2 years with 1 year stayed for violating professional conduct rules. Marshall failed to comply with a court order to pay fees to a client's former attorney and made unsound allegations of gender and racial bias against a judge. Both attorneys must meet certain conditions before they can reapply for their law licenses. More than 80 attorneys on October 28th attended the 2014 Unauthorized Practice of Law seminar at the Thomas J. Moyer Ohio Judicial Center. Sponsored by the Ohio Supreme Court, the seminar is designed to educate attorneys involved in preventing UPL, people who render legal services without having a valid law license in the state. Besides bringing the attorneys up to speed on recent UPL cases and issues, UPL Board Chair John Chester Jr. said one section of the seminar focused solely on sovereign citizens.
They often end up practicing law by virtue of saying that they're not subject to the laws of the state of Ohio and federal government.
Chester said there are about 5 to 10 UPL cases filed each year, and that on average, it takes about 9 months from the time the board receives a complaint until it makes its way to the Supreme Court for review. Civil penalties are often imposed on those who practice law without a license. There are 13 UPL board members who are appointed to 3-year terms by the Supreme Court justices.
Navigating the legal system can be difficult for someone whose native language is not English. That's where court interpreters like Svetlana Ball come in.
My goal is to produce a linguistically correct and legally appropriate equivalent of the what's being said between the parties.
Sign your name, put your current mailing address.
Originally from Ukraine, Ball is a Supreme Court of Ohio certified interpreter and travels the state to assist in court cases where Russian translation is needed. Hundreds of cases a day are heard here at the Franklin County Municipal Court, and the need for language translation is always present.
We have around 6 to 7 interpreters in other languages that come into the courthouse.
Adriana Fonseca is the court's interpreter coordinator.
Interpreters, we are practically invisible. We allow that the judge, the defense attorney, the prosecutor to communicate with that LEP party and allow that communication flows and seamlessly, like if they would be just communicating in English.
Rafael Montanez changed careers a little more than a year ago to become a Spanish interpreter, and he finds the work rewarding.
Even though you're translating, sometimes what can be repetitive, to us becomes repetitive, but to the client, that's the bridge between understanding what's going on and being able to stand on their own, so to speak, and being totally helpless.
Ohio courts accommodate about 80 languages and handle more than 25,000 cases a year that require an interpreter. The Supreme Court of Ohio Language Services program includes a rigorous testing process that certifies interpreters like Ball, Fonseca, and Montanez, and bench cards to help guide judges when it comes to working with interpreters.
That's a look at Court News Ohio's top stories. Visit courtnewsohio.gov for the latest headlines on Ohio's courts. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter.